Good.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining another session with us. Hi, Fabian.
Hi, Kishin.
So we are talking about a sense of self, right? We are talking, so there's three nature of existence. One is it's changeable, right? Everybody knows that things change, we change. So that is one nature of existence. Another nature is we suffer, right? And we suffer not because we suffer because of the nature of existence. And another characteristic is the non-self aspect, meaning we don't exist in and of ourselves. We don't exist as this individual, separate entity, right? We're not. We are, you can say, multidimensional, but at the same time, there is not an entity, or there is not an agent, or there is not an ego, or there is not a sense of self. That's just how we perceive because of the nature of consciousness. So we cover briefly in the last video how this mind consciousness is able to experience everything, and everything of as we grow up. So there seems this continuity from when we are aware, born, to the day we die. Majorly, it seems like one stream of consciousness. So it's very hard for a person, whether they accept this concept or not, it's very hard to understand and very hard to experience. But as we meditate and as we become calmer and as our mind becomes still, it's just like the surface of the water is becoming very still. Then we can experience this non-self aspect, because the self would temporarily cease, or in that small period of time, it stopped. And we can experience that non-self.
That's very important, isn't it? Like, because like normally if we didn't have this meditation before, then we would think we are the self, but like by stopping it in that one session, actually that is a aha moment. You know, that there's actually such a thing as not a self. Or
when you first experience, you won't perceive it like that. You would be fear, because all of a sudden you disappear. Then it will be like shock. In that time, you won't get shocked, but afterwards, like, what's going on there? Where did I go? What happened? Right?
yes,
You don't go, aha, non-self.
that's right.
Only after like contemplating and introspection, then maybe an insight come up and say, oh, non-self. But what I also want, so if there is non-self, then what make us? That's the next question, right? So we cover the 5 khandhas or the 5 processes. And a good analogy I like to use is the hologram. You know, in Star Wars, when you send a message to somebody and Luke appear or Princess Leia appear, you know.
Mhm.
So we have these 5 processes that is in this device. And when it works and it's harmonious, it will project this image of a self. And that is exactly how we see ourselves. It look like a solid self, and it look like me as an individual, but it is just a hologram.
Yes, yes. It doesn't have a core or substance. It just appears to be real.
Yeah. Not only that, it doesn't exist in and of itself, right?
Mhm.
When Princess Leia appeared in that hologram, it is because of this device and somebody pressed the button. Then the hologram. But in that moment, she doesn't exist in and of herself. She might be
Yes,
somewhere else, you know, but but
yes,
to demonstrate the holographic um, nature of ourselves, then
yes.
that's how that's the best analogy.
Yeah, I love that one.
But it's very hard, very hard. What I also see people misuse this concept is when they say, okay, so if there's no me, there's no self, then I can do whatever I like. And, you know, there will be no self, there'll be no consequences. So
Mhm.
no responsibility. And um, that's just total misuse or or total misuse or misunderstanding of this concept. Mm. When we feel we have a sense of self, then it needs to be functional and healthy, right?
Yes, so I had this half wisdom before that knowing that there's a sense of self, I have to crush the self. I have to destroy the self. Um,
Mm,
that the self, to have a self is wrong.
mm,
All that. That is very dangerous half wisdom
mm,
because in order, is what I find, in order to let go of the self more, you have to have a healthy self before, right? So, but what I did was just destroying myself, destroying every desire, destroying every whatever happened in the self or what I took to be
mm.
me. I had a bad connection towards it, and then of course that would have an impact on the mind, which is not positive and not calm and not serene. Yeah, actually quite dark.
Well, here's the thing about this path. Uh, when we mistaken or when we is not properly taught, or we, like you say, have wisdom, then we try to get rid of this sense of self, and or we try to do things to reduce it. That have the reverse effects,
Mhm.
because even though we're trying to do something that would make it fade, we are actually focusing more on it.
Mhm.
To get it? So you
Yeah, and with a very bad point of view, we're focusing on it. Not only we're
exactly,
focusing on it, but very say,
exactly. It's like if you don't believe in something, then there is no need to talk about it, right? If I go and start talking to you about this rainbow unicorn and whether it exists or not, you see no point in arguing with me, right? And the facts that you say, but then you say, no, I don't believe, and then you spend all this effort in arguing with me the non-existence of the rainbow unicorn. It goes to show, even though you don't believe it, you still believe in it.
Yeah. That's right. And I have an opinion about it straight away, right? And then this opinion is, I have to justify this opinion. And actually, this is interesting as we're talking about the sense of self. The sense of self sits basically in everything, doesn't it? So you said in this video before that the ego is actually quite coarse to mention. So the sense of self sort of sits, as we just said, like in also in the opinion to convince you that this colorful rainbow,
Exactly.
whatever. Yeah,
Exactly.
beautiful.
So who is doing all this resistance? Who is doing all these acts to minimize itself? Or
Hmm.
who is doing all these acts to get rid of itself? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's
the
interesting.
way, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So the way to go about um of you can call to see this aspect is to give it so much pleasure, right? I don't mean the sense pleasure, I mean the wholesome pleasure, the pleasure that soothes you, that able you to transcend, that give you security, contentment, and happiness, and joy, and peace, that
Hmm.
in that moment you are able to feel so secure and safe that you can let things go.
Yes.
And when you let things go, then the mind expands, right? You're in the mind, you're in the consciousness. Uh, and and when the mind expand, I'm not talking about an experience. I'm not talking about just a meditation state. I'm talking about a state, whether it's in meditation, sleeping, or consciousness during the day. It is big. It's always big. And
Hmm.
when consciousness is big like that, um, there is less of an ego because it is not so much in the body. It's not, it's the body still walking and eating still, but the mind is big. It doesn't, when it's so big, it doesn't worry about itself, about the little thing. It's like when you walking and you want to see the birds, yeah, right? The ants and the virus is so small you don't even pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Get what I mean? It's the same.
Hmm.
When the mind is so big, it doesn't pay attention to the sense desire. It doesn't pay attention to the sense pleasure, or what the body is doing, right? So, but it's the sense of self needs the body, right? It needs the thinking. It needs a lot of feedback. It needs these five candles to be working to have this solid hologram. But imagine if in the device one component doesn't work. So the hologram will start to glitch, right?
Yes.
It'll just go, it'll be static. That's basically the same when the mind is so big and it's not paying attention to the body. um, then the sense of self is glitching. It goes all funny and weird, right? And then at some point it will just disappear, and that's how you that is the jhana path. That's how the sense of self um, can be ceased. It's not about getting rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing about spirituality. When a person enter and start going on this journey, um, they forget about personal problem, personal issues like childhood trauma or relationship problem. It's, it's like everything, they don't want to focus and deal with all of that. They just want to deal with spiritual problem.
Yeah, they don't acknowledge their problems anymore. Like, say it's unimportant, or there is no self anyway, so there's also not a problem, right? So that's the way of thinking, maybe.
Uh, it's not only that, it's more subtle than that. A lot of the um, a lot of the personal problem is now masked and justified into a spiritual problem. So, okay, a good way of classic way is say somebody have an eating problem, right? With their food, whether they become too thin or they become bulimic. So instead of addressing and processing that, when they enter spirituality, then they justify to continue to not eat because now it's okay. I am letting go of this attachment. I
Mm-hmm.
am uh, reducing my sense of self. I am,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm
Renouncing.
letting go of the body, and yeah, but the body is the one which is sort of carrying the mind to the end, right? To the end of the spiritual path. So that's what some people might forget too, right? So don't caring about the body at all. It's not important.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
yeah.
see that also. I see that also. They totally let go. There is no more self-care. Um, they don't have proper eating food and don't sleep and yeah, just it's I don't think that's healthy way of looking at things at all. Because
Mhm.
imagine you do that to your car, you know, how long is your car gonna last, right?
Yeah.
Our body is the same vehicle. It takes, we need to respect it and take care of it, but in a healthy way, to see that it is something very valuable and precious vehicle that enable us to achieve what we want to achieve this life,
Mhm.
because it will be a really waste of existence if we have that attitude and then the car, you know, doesn't work anymore and we waste its life.
So yeah, I totally understand. So, but what can we say actually where the sense of self is sitting, right? Where is it to be spotted? Actually, it's as far as I understand it now from this talk, is actually sitting everywhere in the attitude one have, in the opinion one have, in the
Well,
language one uses, the way one sees the world, and the way one sort of attaches to their feelings. Is actually like kind of like a bacteria or like a virus, and it's sort of everywhere, and you cannot see it or spot it. You might see the impact of it maybe, or feel the impact of the self, or maybe not. It's just you get accustomed to it, right? And then you think you are it, right? So you are the
Well,
sense of self.
number one, like we say, the sense of self is holographic. It's basically a mirage. It's an illusion. So it can't be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, everywhere in the five khandhas. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on some person have more identity and emphasis on their body because they are born beautiful.
The muscle builders also,
Or it is their job, or it is
like models.
or a stage of life. So like when you're young, you tend to be more in your body and identify with your body. So and then as we become more self-aware, we tap into other aspect of ourselves, which is consciousness, awareness. Some people identify with their intellect,
Yes.
in their knowledge, in their scientific achievements.
I've been
Yeah,
there too.
in their creativity as artists. So it's all in the five aspect of ourselves.
Mhm.
It depends on varies wide spectrum where a person is.
But yeah, but a question to that. So it's, you said it's basically in the five khandhas, right? But the fifth khandha, which we covered last talk, is the one who's actually seeing, or inspecting, and yeah,
So
it's looking at that, right? So the consciousness of being aware. Oh, we also should cover, is consciousness equal to awareness equal to knowing? So is that
mm,
all the same?
okay. So to understand that, then it needs quite an advanced state of meditation, because as we transcend, or as we still our mind, then consciousness, we become more an observer. We watch as we learn to disentangle the mind consciousness from all this chaotic pull of the sense desires. Then the mind consciousness are able to become more of an observer. Then
Mhm.
we feel that we are more of awareness, more of knowing, more of mindfulness. That's what strong mindfulness mean.
Mhm.
It's just the facts that this mind conscious, instead of jumping everywhere and experience everything and claim everything and own everything, it it's hey, hang on, this is too chaotic, this is too tiring. um I want to watch myself. uh, so it step back, and it's start to experience and watch without comments.
Yeah, it's just a slight metaphor came up. It's like actually inviting people to a party, and then actually you are the host, and then you're basically inviting everyone. You're talking to everyone. Is everyone okay? Yeah, this and that happened, and you go to every guest, and then you hear there and there, but you're actually not on the party in a way, right? So you're not sitting back and enjoying the guests having fun and all this, right? So you are just, oh, that one needs something to eat. That one is we should get some drinking. Oh, some music. Ah, where's the music? And then you're so worried, or the sense of self is like sort of everywhere, but in a seat where, because it's your party, right? And you could just sort of relax the show. So you're the watcher rather than the doer, right?
Yeah, so the key word in there is yours, right? So if you think that everything you experience see here is yours, then you will identify with it and invest energy into it. But
Hmm.
when you realize that it's not me, I might experience this, but I am not that. So the more we less identify and let things define us, then we become more an awareness, right? But it
Yes.
doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. There is more beyond that awareness. But majority people to get to beyond being the knower and beyond being the awareness needs such a deep, long developed mind that very rarely people can achieve that. So majority they stop there, and so there is this um, big movement or concept of enlightenment as I am the awareness,
Hmm.
right? I am the beingness. I am the knower.
Hmm.
I am all this pure awareness. It's not, there's don't just stop there. Don't stop anywhere.
Yeah, and don't attach to the states you're going through while walking the path, right? So that's another thing. Like you have great feelings, you feel amazing, and then you're like, okay, yeah, that's me, right? That I achieved that, right? There's the sense of self again trying to sneak in and claim it to be it, right?
That's
But
another thing that people some people or majority of people don't understand the final, like they don't see the peak of Mount Everest. They only hear about it, right? They don't understand it. So anytime that they experience something so phenomenal during the climb up, they mistake it as the peak. So
yes.
so don't stop anywhere as long as there is this awareness and there is this knowing. Don't stop anywhere. Go all the
So
way.
So don't stop and going all the way, meaning basically keep being kind, keep having your morality up, keep being to try to yeah sort of be happy, to mindfulness, meditation, and jhana, right? So keep on doing that till sort of it vanish, like yeah, till you reach the state
Yeah,
or not. Yeah.
yeah. Till this I am the knower or I am this awareness gone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, you will when walking the path, you will get more sensible to it, right? You get more sharp, and then you sort of see everything with a very clear sight, right? Which has before been sort of clouded or put up with filters, and you sort of couldn't see really through it.
Well, the most important seeing is to see what ceased and what arise. Okay.
Hmm.
To see what you have shed or what you have shifted from and what you have shifted to. So that is so important to be aware of that in everything, in your
So,
point of
um,
view, in your
yeah, sorry.
understanding, in your jhana. Because if you don't have that ability down pat, you you won't be able to realize, oh, my awareness gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so but also it's not only important that there's awareness and being mindful about it, but it's also important what I hear out of this that you memorize sort of that memory is actually quite an important thing that you sort of you know what you have let go and how you related to that before in order to understand where you are now. So is memory important to the path?
Everything is a tool, and everything is important in its time. When a tool serves its purpose, you let it go. When you're in the state of immaterial and awareness, then trying to know something is going to cause you suffering. Because in that state, you just have to learn not to know things, because your sense of self is blipping in and out. That's also meaning the knowing is blipping in and out. That means sometimes you look at things and you don't know it, and you just have to be okay with not knowing it.
It's
And
interesting.
if you keep holding on to the memory, and then you thought you go crazy, because it's like, not only don't you remember it, you don't know it.
Yeah, I understand. So it's actually quite interesting what you've been starting with, is sort of circling back to as the three natures of existence, as sort of the non-self, or the self trying to know things and trying latching onto things, but because they're changing, they cause the suffering, right? And
No,
because it's not yours.
it only
Sorry,
causes
yeah.
suffering if you hold on to the old thing, and if you don't have the self-awareness of what you're changing into. But
Okay.
if you have self-awareness that you are changing and you're transforming, then there is no suffering, because you're okay with it, you accept it, and you know that this phase of change will pass.
Yes. Ah, fantastic. Well, time has slipped very fast, so here's the change again in terms of time. Yeah, so do you have anything left to say or to summarize for the audience, in
The
terms of
sense
the
of
sense of,
self.
yeah.
Yeah, so sense of self, very changeable. It's holographic. um uh, don't have this idea that we are an entity, and when we exist in and of itself. A sense of self can be multidimensional, um, but but very importantly in this path is, don't stop anywhere. Don't, just because you experience something phenomenal bliss or phenomenal happiness, don't stop there. Don't label, don't categorize, don't put it in a box and limit yourself and anchor yourself there. Keep going, meaning keep transcending, keep letting go, keep having insight, keep questioning, keep learning, to the end.
That's a good summary. Yeah, fantastic. So we know a little bit more of what we are and what we are not, so to speak. And yeah, and that the sense of self is sort of very sneaky in a way, right? It's yeah, it's a tricky one, and it's yeah, probably gonna accompany you for a long time until you finally have the sort of developed the clarity, the sharpness, and the mindfulness in order to see it and be conscious about that, and then it, as I understand it, is slowly fades away by itself. The more conscious you are, and the more you follow in the spiritual path, it sort of wanes off, right? So it's by itself. So you don't really have to do it and cut it and destroy it and
No,
whatever,
yeah,
tear it apart.
we create condition for it to fade and to glitch and to go static. um, but we consciously can't do, because to think that we can do something is holding on to this notion of a very strong controlling self.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got sort of 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
I think we've been sort of covering it in a good way. So if there's some questions, everyone can feel free to ask, and I'll check the comments later, and then we might address it in the next talk. So okay, it's been lots of fun and very interesting to me, and yeah, thank you a lot, Kishin.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.